The Unity Council's Grand Assembly Hall gleamed under the artificial light of three suns, each representing the founding species of the Interstellar Alliance. The cavernous chamber, carved from a single asteroid and reinforced with quantum-stabilized force fields, housed representatives from over 200 worlds. Delegates of every imaginable form moved through the space with practiced decorum, some floating on anti-gravity platforms, others slithering across specially designed pathways, while the bipedal majority navigated the conventional walkways that spiraled toward the central podium. Ambassador Lauren stood at the edge of the council platform, his forearms clasped behind his back in the traditional posture of diplomatic readiness. The pale blue scales that covered his elongated face shimmered slightly as he frowned at the datapad in his lower left hand. After 37 standard years as the Vexillian ambassador to the Unity Council, Lauren had learned to be wary of last-minute protocol adjustments. "Another security update, Ambassador?" asked his aide. Tess, her tentacles briefly touching the datapad's edge. "The fourth one today," Lauren replied, his voice a low rumble that barely carried beyond his personal space bubble. "I've never seen this level of precaution for a first contact. It's almost as if High Command expects an invasion rather than a diplomatic envoy." Tess coiled her primary appendages nervously. "The humans have quite a reputation, sir." Based on intercepted transmissions and third-party reports, Lauren countered, "Hardly reliable intelligence for such extreme measures." The hall's ambient chatter diminished as the central timekeeper pulsed a soft blue light. 30 minutes until the scheduled arrival. Delegates hurried to their assigned positions, each species grouped within their respective sectors. Security personnel, previously discreet presences along the perimeter, now moved into more visible formations. Lauren noted the subtle shift in their equipment, standard ceremonial staffs replaced with pulse disruptors, ostensibly still decorative but capable of incapacitating most known life forms. High Consul Talari, the current rotating head of the council, glided to the central podium. Her crystalline body structure refracted the light dramatically, a biological display that had evolved on her homeworld to indicate authority. The display now seemed excessive, almost aggressive in its intensity. "Honored representatives," Talari's voice resonated through the chamber without technological amplification. "We stand at a historic crossroads. The species known as humans has accepted our invitation to formal diplomatic relations. Their envoy is scheduled to arrive via our quantum reception pad at precisely 1400 hours, Galactic Standard Time." Lauren shifted uncomfortably. The quantum reception pad was an unusual choice, typically reserved for emergency situations, not ceremonial first contacts. The technology allowed for instantaneous transport across vast distances, but required precise coordinates and specialized equipment at both ends. The fact that humans possessed compatible technology raised questions that hadn't been adequately addressed in the briefings. As per revised security protocols, Talari continued, "All delegates will remain at a minimum distance of 10 meters from the reception area. The human envoy has agreed to arrive unarmed and alone, as a gesture of peaceful intent." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Arriving unarmed was standard protocol, but the emphasis Talari placed on the word alone suggested that alternative scenarios had been considered. Commander Vax of the Council Guard stepped forward, his exoskeleton clicking softly against the polished floor. "All defensive systems are at optimal capacity," he reported, voice modulated to project calm efficiency. "Quantum barriers are in place to contain any unexpected scenarios, and we have isolation protocols ready should the need arise." Is such extensive preparation really necessary? Lauren found himself asking, the words escaping before diplomatic prudence could silence them. This display might be perceived as hostile by our guests. Talari's crystalline structure darkened slightly at the edges, a sign of irritation. "Ambassador Lauren, your concern for diplomatic niceties is noted. However, the Security Council's assessment of human capabilities suggests an abundance of caution is warranted." "What capabilities exactly?" Lauren pressed, aware that he was breaching protocol but genuinely concerned. The briefings contained minimal concrete information. That information is classified beyond your clearance level. Commander Vax interjected smoothly. Rest assured, these measures are proportional to the potential risk. Before Lauren could respond, the central timekeeper pulsed red, 5 minutes to the scheduled arrival. The assembly fell silent, the tension palpable as security personnel moved into their final positions. Lauren noticed additional guards entering through the secondary access points, their movements precise and coordinated. The security presence had nearly doubled since the morning briefing. At precisely 1400 hours, the quantum reception pad activated. Unlike the gradual materialization process used by most council species, the pad flared with sudden intensity, a flash of blue-white energy that momentarily overloaded the visual sensors of several delegates. When the light faded, a single figure stood at the center of the platform. The human was smaller than Lauren had expected, clothed in a simple gray garment that covered most of its body. The envoy appeared almost fragile compared to the armored guards surrounding the platform. The being had no visible natural defenses, no claws, no scales, no exoskeleton, just soft-looking pale skin exposed on its face and hands. Its head bore a covering of dark filaments, pulled back from its face in what Lauren assumed was a cultural arrangement. Most striking to Lauren was the complete absence of visible technology. No communication devices, no defensive shields, not even the basic translation modules that most species carried for interstellar diplomacy. The human stood perfectly still, hands visible at its sides, posture straight but not rigid. And yet, every security sensor in the chamber was suddenly flashing alert status. "Weapons detected," Commander Vax barked, his personal shield activating automatically. "Multiple threats identified." Lauren stared in confusion. The human had materialized exactly as promised, alone and visibly unarmed. Yet the Council's advanced detection systems were registering threat levels that triggered an immediate lockdown response. The massive doors to the chamber sealed with a resonant thud that echoed through the suddenly chaotic space. "I assure you," the human spoke, its voice somehow perfectly audible despite the lack of any translation technology. "I am unarmed as agreed." The words were in perfect galactic standard, pronounced with an accuracy that few non-native speakers ever achieved. The voice was modulated in a higher register than Lauren's, but not unpleasantly so. "Our sensors indicate otherwise," Talari responded, her crystalline form now pulsing with defensive energy patterns. "Explain this discrepancy immediately." The human smiled, a facial gesture that Lauren recognized from briefing materials as potentially indicating either friendliness or predatory intent, depending on context. "My name is Dr. Mara Yang, representing the United Earth Diplomatic Corps," the human said calmly. "The anomalous readings your sensors are detecting are likely biological in nature. Humans evolved as pursuit predators with several unique adaptations that your systems may register as technological enhancements." Commander Vax moved closer to the platform, his weapon now clearly visible in his primary manipulator. "Our systems are calibrated to distinguish between biological and technological threats. They indicate active technological signatures emanating from your person." Dr. Yang remained motionless, the smile never leaving her face. "May I have permission to address the full council? I believe I can clarify the situation to everyone's satisfaction." "Proceed," Talari authorized after a moment's hesitation. "But be aware that any movement deemed threatening will result in immediate neutralization." "Thank you, High Consul." Dr. Yang gave a slight nod that Lauren interpreted as respectful. "Distinguished representatives of the Unity Council, I understand your caution. Humanity has studied your collective civilizations for several decades, learning your languages, customs, and technological capabilities before making our presence known." A ripple of discomfort moved through the assembly. The implication that humans had been observing them undetected was disturbing on multiple levels. During this observation period, Dr. Yang continued, "We noted with concern the accelerating development of autonomous weapons systems designed for planetary-scale engagement. This trend has historically preceded the collapse of cooperative governance structures in 78% of observed cases." Lauren felt a chill move along his spine ridges. The human was speaking about classified military developments that even most council members weren't fully briefed on. As a precautionary measure, Dr. Yang said, raising her hand slowly, I've been authorized to demonstrate humanity's commitment to peaceful coexistence through a temporary security protocol. With a deliberate motion, Dr. Yang touched a small device on her wrist that had been completely invisible until that moment. Instantly, every communication system in the chamber went silent. The ambient hum of the council's technology, so omnipresent that most delegates never consciously registered it, disappeared, leaving an eerie silence. What have you done? Commander Vax demanded, advancing toward the platform with his weapon raised. I've temporarily isolated this chamber from external communication, Dr. Yang explained. A simple precaution to ensure our conversation remains private. Security alarms began flashing silently throughout the chamber. Additional council guards poured in through emergency access points, their weapons primed. Within minutes, the security presence had tripled, forming concentric rings around the central platform where Dr. Yang stood, still perfectly calm. This action constitutes an act of aggression, Talari declared, her crystalline form now pulsing with rapid, irregular patterns that indicated extreme agitation. Restore communications immediately or face defensive measures. I understand your concern, Dr. Yang replied, her voice still measured and calm. But I must complete my diplomatic presentation before communications are restored. I assure you, no harm will come to anyone in this chamber. Lauren found himself moving forward, diplomatic instinct overriding caution. High Consul, perhaps we should hear the complete message before escalating further. The human has taken no physically aggressive action. Ambassador Lauren! Talari's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. You overstep your authority. This is now a security matter. With respect, High Consul, Lauren countered. This remains primarily a diplomatic encounter. Escalation without full information would be premature. Commander Vax had reached the edge of the platform, his weapon now directly pointed at Dr. Yang. Final warning, restore communications, or I will be forced to neutralize you. Dr. Yang's expression remained unchanged. Commander, before you take action, you should be aware that your weapon, like all Council armaments, has been temporarily secured with quantum locks keyed to my biometric signature. Vax's compound eyes widened as he triggered his weapon. To no effect. Around the chamber, other security personnel discovered the same problem. Their advanced weapons, from simple pulse disruptors to the more lethal fusion projectors carried by elite guards, had all been rendered inert. Pandemonium erupted as delegates realized the implications. The most secure chamber in Council space, protected by the most advanced defense systems in the known galaxy, had been completely compromised by a single, apparently unarmed human. Order! Talari's voice boomed through the chaos, somehow cutting through despite the disabled amplification systems. Maintain diplomatic protocols. Gradually, the chamber quieted, though the tension remained palpable. Every eye, ocular cluster, and sensory apparatus was fixed on the human who stood calmly at the center of the storm she had created. 30 minutes ago, Dr. Yang said once silence had been restored. Synchronized quantum locks were applied to all Council armories, weapons caches, and military deployment systems. These locks cannot be bypassed or disabled without my direct biological authorization. The implications were staggering. Not just the weapons in the chamber, but the entire military infrastructure of the Unity Council had been neutralized in an instant. Lauren felt his secondary heart accelerate as he processed the strategic disaster unfolding before him. This is an act of war, High Consul Talari declared, her voice sharp enough to crack lesser crystalline structures. On the contrary, Dr. Yang replied, it is an act of peace. Had humanity intended war, we would not have bothered with this meeting. The quantum locks are temporary, a demonstration of capability, not a permanent measure. Lauren found himself speaking again, driven by diplomatic instinct and a growing sense that the situation was far more complex than a simple security breach. What are your terms, Dr. Yang? Clearly, You have an objective beyond merely demonstrating technological superiority. Dr. Yang turned toward him, and Lauren was struck by the intensity in her eyes, dark, alert, and somehow both gentle and unyielding simultaneously. A reasonable question, Ambassador Lauren, she acknowledged. Humanity seeks partnership, not dominance. The quantum locks will be released once we have established a framework for mutual security that addresses the existential risk posed by autonomous weapons development. At the 45-minute mark of Dr. Yang's arrival, the tension in the chamber reached a new peak. With a simple gesture, she activated a holographic display that materialized in the air above the platform. The display showed hundreds of spacecraft, sleek, unfamiliar designs, positioned in strategic formations throughout Council space. These vessels, Dr. Yang explained, have been deployed to key systems over the past 3 standard years. Each is capable of planetary-scale intervention if necessary, though we sincerely hope such measures will never be required. The display shifted, showing detailed scans of Council military installations, weapons development facilities, and strategic defense systems, all currently neutralized by the quantum locks. We propose an immediate treaty, Dr. Yang continued, her voice echoing in the stunned silence. End all autonomous weapons development and allow human oversight of the decommissioning process. In exchange, each Council world will be placed under human protection, with guarantees of sovereignty and cultural autonomy. Protection? Talari's voice cracked with indignation. You mean occupation? Protection, Dr. Yang firmly corrected. Humanity has no territorial ambitions within Council space. Our sole concern is preventing the development of technologies that threaten galactic stability. Commander Vax, his weapon still useless in his grasp, moved closer to the High Consul. We cannot negotiate under duress, he insisted. This is coercion, not diplomacy. I understand your perspective, Dr. Yang acknowledged. However, history has shown that certain technological thresholds, once crossed, invariably lead to catastrophic outcomes. The autonomous weapons systems you are developing represent such a threshold. Lauren studied the human carefully. Despite the overwhelming show of force, there was no triumph in her demeanor, no satisfaction in the complete strategic dominance she had established. If anything, she appeared slightly regretful that such measures had been deemed necessary. May I suggest, Lauren ventured, addressing both the human and the High Consul, that we consider the proposal as a starting point for negotiation rather than an ultimatum. Perhaps a compromise can be reached that addresses human concerns while preserving Council autonomy. For the first time, Dr. Yang's composed expression shifted slightly, a flicker of what Lauren interpreted as cautious hope crossing her features. Ambassador Lauren's suggestion has merit. We are prepared to discuss modifications to our proposal, provided the core objective, prevention of autonomous weapons proliferation, is achieved. High Consul Talari's crystalline form had dimmed to a dull luster, a sign of intense internal deliberation. Around the chamber, delegates huddled in small groups, urgent whispers filling the space as various factions debated their response. The security forces remained in position, their weapons useless, but their presence still imposing. We will require time to consult, Talari finally announced. A matter of this magnitude cannot be decided by executive decree. Of course, Dr. Yang agreed. However, I must insist that consultations occur within this chamber, without external communications, until preliminary terms are established. The quantum locks will remain in place during this period. Talari's form darkened further, nearly black at the edges now, a sign of extreme displeasure. You leave us little choice. On the contrary, Dr. Yang replied gently, I offer you the most important choice your civilization will ever make: partnership in a stable, peaceful galactic community, or continuation down a path that historical analysis suggests leads to eventual self-destruction. The next several hours unfolded in a strange, tense rhythm of diplomatic maneuvering. The council split into faction groups, with representatives clustering according to their alliance blocks. Lauren found himself unexpectedly thrust into a central role. moving between groups as an informal mediator. His long experience and reputation for fairness made him acceptable to most factions, even those typically opposed to Vexillian interests. Dr. Yang remained on the central platform, occasionally answering direct questions, but mostly observing the process with patient attention. The security forces, though still present in overwhelming numbers, had relaxed their aggressive posture somewhat, recognizing the futility of military intervention. The Core-Word Alliance cannot accept human oversight of our defensive systems, declared Ambassador Neth, the insectoid representative of 17 heavily militarized worlds. It violates our sovereign right to self-protection. Perhaps we might consider joint oversight, Lauren suggested. Mixed committees of human and council representatives, operating by consensus. An interesting proposal, Dr. Yang commented from her position on the platform. Human oversight need not mean human control. Our concern is with certain technological paths, not with legitimate defense needs. High Consul Talari, who had been conferring with her aides, rejoined the central discussion. What guarantees do we have that these joint committees won't simply become vehicles for human dominance? A valid concern, Dr. Yang acknowledged. We are prepared to establish clear charter limitations and rotation of authority. Additionally, we would accept the inclusion of quantum-verified truth protocols in all committee proceedings. This concession caused a stir among the delegates. Quantum-verified truth protocols were rarely accepted by diplomatic missions, as they prevented even the smallest deception or omission during official proceedings. That humans would voluntarily subject themselves to such constraints was unprecedented. The negotiations continued, point by point, concession by concession. Lauren found himself increasingly impressed by Dr. Yang's approach. Despite holding overwhelming leverage, she negotiated as if seeking genuine partnership, making substantive concessions on implementation details while remaining firm on the core principle of weapons limitation. 6 hours after Dr. Yang's arrival, a provisional agreement began to take shape. The Council would halt autonomous weapons development and accept a phased decommissioning process for existing systems. In exchange, humans would provide defensive technology that operated on different principles. Technology they claimed was both more effective and less destabilizing than autonomous weapons. The human proposals for defensive systems are intriguing, Lauren admitted during a private consultation with Talari and Commander Vax. Their shield technology alone would render most of our current offensive systems obsolete. Technology that would make us dependent on human maintenance and upgrades. Vax countered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. A subtle form of control. The technical specifications include full knowledge transfer. Lauren pointed out, we would be partners in development, not clients. Talari's crystalline form had gradually regained some of its luster as the negotiations progressed. Ambassador Lauren, you seem increasingly supportive of the human position. Have you considered that their technology demonstration might have included subtle influence mechanisms? Lauren bristled at the implication. I have served the Council faithfully for 37 years, High Consul. My assessment is based on diplomatic experience, not manipulation. The humans have demonstrated overwhelming capability, yet show remarkable restraint in their demands. Restraint? Vax scoffed. They have neutralized our entire defense infrastructure. Temporarily, Lauren emphasized, and without casualties or permanent damage, consider the alternative. Had they chosen military action rather than diplomacy, would we be discussing terms or counting our dead? The stark question hung in the air between them. Finally, Talari's form brightened slightly. A concession, if not agreement. We will proceed with the provisional framework, she decided. But I want additional safeguards incorporated before final ratification. As the 8th hour of negotiations drew to a close, a formal document was prepared. The Provisional Accord on Technological Cooperation and Security Limitations, as it was named, outlined the basic framework for human-council relations moving forward. The document acknowledged human concerns about autonomous weapons development while establishing clear limits on human intervention in council affairs. Dr. Yang reviewed the document carefully before signaling her approval. "This represents a promising beginning," she stated. "With your permission, High Consul, I will now remove the communication restrictions and begin the process of releasing the quantum locks." Talari, who had insisted on personally reviewing every word of the agreement, gave a formal gesture of assent. "Proceed, Dr. Yang. But understand that full ratification will require approval from member worlds not represented here today." "Of course," Dr. Yang agreed. "The provisional nature of our agreement is understood. Humanity is prepared to engage in further discussions as needed." With a series of precise gestures, Dr. Yang deactivated the protocols that had isolated the council chamber. Immediately, communication systems throughout the space reactivated, their familiar hum returning to the background ambient noise. Security alerts that had been silently accumulating now sounded briefly before being acknowledged and silenced. "The quantum locks on council weapons will disengage sequentially over the next 12 hours, Dr. Yang explained. "Beginning with personal weapons in this chamber and proceeding outward to strategic systems, the process is designed to prevent any destabilizing sudden shifts in the security landscape." Commander Vax verified her statement as the weapons carried by his security detail began to show active status once again. The tension in the chamber visibly decreased as armed capability was restored, though the security forces maintained their disciplined positions. "I trust this demonstration has been instructive rather than traumatic." Dr. Yang addressed the full assembly. "Humanity comes not as conquerors, but as concerned neighbors. The path we have begun today leads toward a stable, peaceful galactic community where technological advancement serves life rather than threatening it." Lauren, watching the proceedings from his position near the High Consul, found himself reflecting on the extraordinary events of the day. In a single diplomatic session, albeit one unlike any in Council history, the balance of power in known space had fundamentally shifted. Yet the shift had occurred with minimal disruption and no bloodshed, a testament to both human capability and restraint. As the formal proceedings concluded, Dr. Yang stepped down from the central platform. The security cordon parted before her, not by command, but by the subtle shift in threat assessment that had occurred throughout the negotiation process. What had begun as hostile containment had transformed into something closer to ceremonial escort. "Ambassador Lauren," Dr. Yang approached him directly. "I wish to express my appreciation for your role today. Your diplomatic skill helped bridge perspectives that might otherwise have remained in conflict." Lauren performed the traditional Vexillian gesture of professional respect, a complex movement involving all four arms that few non-Vexillians bothered to learn correctly. To his surprise, Dr. Yang returned the gesture with perfect precision. "You've studied our customs extensively," he observed. "Understanding precedes cooperation," she replied with a slight smile. "Humanity has dedicated considerable resources to cultural comprehension precisely because we value the diversity of perspectives the Council represents. Yet you came prepared to override our autonomy if necessary," Lauren noted, not accusingly, but as a point of clarification. Dr. Yang's expression grew more serious. "History, both yours and ours, suggests that certain technological developments create irreversible existential risks. We calculated that temporary intervention, even if resented, was preferable to allowing such risks to mature." "A utilitarian calculation," Lauren suggested. "With significant moral weight attached to long-term outcomes," Dr. Yang acknowledged. "The approach is not without ethical complexity." Their conversation was interrupted by High Consul Talari, who approached with a small delegation of senior representatives. "Dr. Yang, formal departure protocols have been prepared," Talari announced. "Unless you require rest facilities before your return journey." "Thank you, but that won't be necessary," Dr. Yang replied. "Human physiology adapts well to extended diplomatic engagements. I am prepared to depart whenever convenient for the Council." The departure ceremony was notably more subdued than the arrival had been. The security presence, while still substantial, had been reduced to levels consistent with normal high-level diplomatic functions. Dr. Yang was escorted to the quantum reception pad by a small honor guard rather than a containment team. Until our next meeting, Dr. Yang said, addressing the assembly one final time. May the path we have begun today lead to prosperity for all our peoples. With that, she activated a small device, now visible on her wrist where it had been concealed before, and disappeared in a flash of energy similar to the one that had marked her arrival. The quantum pad cycled down, its power signature fading to standby levels. In the moments following her departure, the chamber remained unusually quiet. The events of the day had left even the most loquacious species subdued, processing the implications of what had transpired. Lauren found himself approached by Tess, his aide, who had maintained a discreet distance throughout the negotiations. An extraordinary day, Ambassador, she observed, her tentacles moving in patterns that indicated both awe and concern. Indeed, Lauren agreed, one that will be studied in diplomatic academies for generations to come. Do you believe the humans are trustworthy? Tess asked, lowering her voice despite the fact that most delegates were now engaged in their own private conversations. Lauren considered the question carefully. I believe they are consistent with their stated principles, he finally replied. Whether those principles align with Council interests in the long term remains to be seen. They neutralized our entire defense infrastructure without firing a shot. Tess pointed out, some would say that demands retaliation once capabilities are restored. And what would retaliation achieve? Lauren countered. They demonstrated technological superiority while simultaneously showing restraint. The Provisional Accord offers a path forward that preserves dignity and security for all parties. You sound almost admiring, Ambassador. Professional respect, Lauren clarified. Dr. Yang accomplished her mission with minimal casualties to either pride or position. That deserves acknowledgement, regardless of how one feels about her methods. As delegates began to disperse, heading toward their respective quarters or transport facilities, Lauren lingered in the Grand Chamber. The space that had witnessed countless diplomatic engagements over centuries had never seen anything quite like the events of this day. The Unity Council, founded on principles of mutual security and cooperative governance, had encountered a species that challenged its fundamental assumptions about power and its application. The humans had demonstrated that true security might not lie in accumulated firepower, but in the strategic deployment of technological leverage combined with genuine diplomatic engagement. Commander Vax approached, his security detail now restored to full operational status. Ambassador Lauren, a moment of your time? Of course, Commander, Lauren responded, turning to face the security chief. Your intervention today was significant, Vax said, his mandibles moving in a pattern that suggested reluctant acknowledgement. The situation could have deteriorated rapidly without diplomatic mediation. We all served our functions, Lauren replied diplomatically. Security, governance, and mediation. Each was necessary to reach a stable outcome. Perhaps, Vax conceded, but the balance has shifted. The Council must adapt to a new reality, one where our traditional security approaches may be obsolete. Evolution is rarely comfortable, Commander, Lauren observed, yet it is inevitable. The question is whether we guide the process or resist it until forced to change on terms not of our choosing. Vax's compound eyes studied Lauren carefully. You believe the human approach has merit? I believe in survival, Lauren clarified. And in prosperity through adaptation. The humans have offered us technology that could elevate all Council species while removing certain existential risks. That merits serious consideration, regardless of how one feels about their methods of introduction. The commander's exoskeleton shifted slightly, a gesture equivalent to a thoughtful nod. Your perspective will be valuable in the discussions to come, Ambassador. Not all factions share your pragmatism. As Vax departed, Lauren remained alone in the gradually darkening chamber. The artificial suns that illuminated the space were cycling toward evening settings, their light taking on the golden hues of sunset. In a single extraordinary hour, the course of galactic politics had been irrevocably altered. An unarmed human diplomat had achieved what fleets of warships could not. a fundamental restructuring of power relationships through the strategic application of technology and diplomatic engagement. The implications would reverberate through council space for generations to come. Some would resist, clinging to traditional notions of sovereignty and security. Others would embrace the new paradigm, recognizing the potential benefits of human partnership. Lauren, for his part, had glimpsed a possible future where technological advancement served life rather than threatening it. Whether that vision would be realized remained uncertain, but the path toward it had been opened, not by force of arms, but by the calculated vulnerability of an unarmed diplomat who had arrived alone yet commanded the respect of an entire galactic council. As he finally turned to leave the chamber, Lauren reflected that perhaps this was the most profound lesson of the day. True power lay not in the capacity for destruction, but in the ability to shape events through strategic restraint and clear vision. The humans, it seemed, understood this principle better than most. Whether the Council could learn the same lesson would determine the shape of interstellar relations for centuries to come. The human diplomat had arrived unarmed. Security had tripled within the first hour. And yet, in the end, peace had prevailed through understanding rather than force, a rare outcome in the often violent history of first contacts and power transitions. As the grand doors of the council chamber closed behind him, Ambassador Lauren couldn't help but wonder what the next meeting with Dr. Yang would bring. One thing was certain: the galaxy would never be quite the same again.